The line outside the theater stretched farther than anyone expected. Hours before the doors opened, people wrapped in Philippine flags stood beside American music lovers who had only heard rumors about the legendary performer everyone kept talking about online. Street vendors sold glowing wristbands, bottled water, and handmade shirts with the words, "Hataw Na forever," printed in giant gold letters. The energy felt electric long before the music even started. Inside the massive Los Angeles venue, stagehands rushed across the floor adjusting lights while giant LED screens flashed quick previews of the concert. A deep bass sound echoed through the building as technicians tested the speakers again and again. Every vibration shook the seats slightly, making the growing crowd scream in anticipation. Backstage, Gary Valenciano sat quietly in front of the mirror while someone fixed the collar of his glittering black jacket. The room around him buzzed with activity, but he remained calm, tapping his fingers gently against his knees to the rhythm only he could hear. Years had passed since he first stepped onto a stage, yet tonight felt different. America had seen huge stars, unforgettable performances, and historic concerts, but tonight he carried something personal with him. He carried the heartbeat of the Philippines. One assistant rushed into the dressing room with wide eyes. "Gary, the audience is already chanting your name." He smiled softly. From outside the walls came the sound. "Ga-rai, ga-rai, ga-rai." The chant grew louder every second. Another crew member laughed nervously. "I've never heard a crowd this loud before the show even started." Gary stood up slowly and walked toward the curtain leading to the side stage. He peeked through the narrow opening and froze for a moment. Thousands of people, every seat filled, phone lights glowing like stars, fans waving banners in English and Tagalog. Some people were already dancing before the music began. He took a deep breath. Not because he was afraid. Because he understood the moment. This was bigger than a concert. This was culture crossing oceans. This was pride. The house lights suddenly dimmed. The arena exploded instantly. A booming voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, from the Philippines, the one and only, Gary Valenciano." The roar that followed sounded like thunder. Golden lights burst across the stage as drums pounded through the building. Smoke cannons erupted from the floor while dancers sprinted into formation. Then, through the center of the stage, Gary appeared. The crowd lost their minds. People jumped to their feet immediately. Phones flew into the air. Some fans screamed so loudly they nearly cried. Gary smiled, lifted the microphone, and shouted, "Are you ready, America?" The response shook the entire venue. Then the first beat of "Hataw Na" hit. Everything changed. The rhythm blasted through the speakers with explosive force. Instantly, bodies started moving everywhere. Young fans, older couples, teenagers, even security guards near the barricades started dancing without realizing it. Gary moved like pure electricity. Every step landed perfectly with the beat. Every spin ignited another scream. His dancers struggled to keep up with his energy even though he had decades of experience behind him. The giant screens magnified every smile, every movement, every impossible burst of stamina. People who had never heard the song before found themselves clapping along within seconds. The chorus arrived, "Hataw Na." The audience screamed it back louder than the speakers themselves. A woman in the front row grabbed her friend's shoulders in disbelief. "How is he moving like this?" Her friend laughed while dancing uncontrollably. "I don't even know the words and I can't stop." That was the magic happening inside the arena. Nobody cared where they came from. Nobody cared what language they spoke. The music erased every barrier. Gary raced across the stage, pointing toward different sections of the crowd, challenging them to dance harder. Every time he shouted, "Come on!" another wave of energy swept through the building. One camera operator nearly missed his shot because he started bouncing to the beat. Even backstage crew members danced while working. The floor itself seemed alive. The giant screens flashed scenes of fans dancing wildly. Filipino Americans cried while singing every lyric from memory. Beside them, American fans copied the choreography with huge smiles on their faces. Halfway through the song, the music suddenly stopped. The entire arena froze. Gary stood at the edge of the stage, breathing heavily but grinning. "You think you can keep up with me?" he teased. The crowd screamed. "No, no, no," I said. "Can you keep up with me?" The building erupted. Gary pointed toward the band. The drums crashed back in harder than before. And the crowd absolutely exploded. People leapt from their seats. Rows of strangers danced together like lifelong friends. One elderly Filipino man waved his cap in the air while shouting every lyric with tears streaming down his face. His granddaughter danced beside him, laughing uncontrollably. "This is our music," she shouted. "This is our pride." The cameras captured everything. Social media clips spread instantly online. Viewers watching live streams couldn't believe what they were seeing. Comments flooded the internet. "Who is this legend? Why is this performance better than every awards show lately? I've never seen a crowd this alive. America just discovered Gary Valenciano." Inside the venue, the energy only kept rising. Gary launched into a breathtaking dance break, moving with such speed and precision that the audience screamed after nearly every step. Sweat poured down his face under the bright lights, but his smile never faded. The drummer slammed into another transition. Pyrotechnics burst from both sides of the stage. The beat dropped harder. The audience completely lost control. A group of college students near the back started dancing on top of their seats until security told them to get down. Even then, they kept moving nonstop. One American couple who had come to the show out of curiosity looked at each other in total shock. "This guy is unbelievable," the husband said. His wife nodded while laughing breathlessly. "I haven't danced this much in years." Everywhere Gary looked, he saw joy. Pure joy. And that pushed him even harder. He spun across the center platform, dropped into a flawless move that looked impossible for someone half his age, and the crowd reacted like the roof had collapsed. "Gary! Gary! Gary!" The chant grew louder than before. He pointed the microphone toward the audience. Thousands screamed the chorus back at him. The sound was deafening. Even people outside the arena could hear the concert from blocks away. Taxi drivers rolled down their windows trying to figure out what was happening. Fans without tickets gathered near the entrances just to hear the music from outside. One security guard shook his head in amazement. "This feels like a sports championship." Inside, Gary could feel the emotion building inside him. This wasn't only about entertainment anymore. It was about representation. About proving Filipino talent belonged on the biggest stages in the world. The song neared its climax. Lights flashed rapidly across the crowd. The bass pounded through everyone's chest. Gary jumped onto a raised platform. Wild dancers surrounded him in perfect synchronization. Then came the final chorus. The loudest moment of the night. "Hataw Na." The audience screamed it so loudly the sound distorted through some microphones. Confetti cannons exploded across the arena. Golden paper rained from the ceiling. Fans danced beneath the falling confetti while Gary continued singing with unstoppable energy. For those few minutes, the entire building transformed into one massive celebration. When the song finally ended, Gary struck his final pose in the center of the stage. The music stopped, but the screaming did not. The crowd erupted into one of the loudest standing ovations the venue had ever heard. People stomped their feet. They clapped endlessly. Some fans wiped tears from their faces while shouting his name. Gary bent forward, hands on his knees, catching his breath. Then he looked up. The sight nearly overwhelmed him. Thousands still standing. Thousands still cheering. Thousands refusing to sit down. He placed one hand over his heart. "Thank you," he whispered. But the microphone carried those words across the entire arena. The audience screamed even louder. Gary laughed softly. "You're trying to make me emotional tonight." A fan near the front shouted, "We love you, Gary." Another yelled, "The Philippines is proud of you." Gary's eyes glistened. He walked slowly across the stage while the cheering continued. "When I started performing many years ago," he said, "I dreamed about moments like this. Not for fame, not for awards, but for connection." The crowd listened carefully. "I wanted the world to feel the spirit of Filipino music." Massive applause interrupted him. "And tonight," he paused, looking around the arena. "Tonight, I think you felt it." The roar that followed felt endless. Then someone started chanting again. "Hataw Na, Hataw Na, Hataw Na." Soon the entire arena joined in. Gary burst into laughter. "Oh no," he joked. "You're trying to kill me tonight." The band members grinned at each other. One guitarist leaned toward his microphone. "You heard them, Gary." The audience exploded again. Gary shook his head playfully before looking toward the drummer. Can you still go? The drummer slammed his sticks together. The crowd screamed in anticipation. Gary pointed into the audience. Then let's do it one more time. The arena detonated with excitement. The beat returned, and somehow the energy doubled. This time the audience knew every movement. Thousands danced together in perfect chaos. The cameras captured unbelievable scenes. An elderly couple dancing hand in hand. A group of teenagers forming a circle while singing. Parents lifting children onto their shoulders. People from different cultures, backgrounds, and ages moving together under the same rhythm. Gary fed off every second of it. He sprinted from one side of the stage to the other, high-fiving fans near the barricade. Security guards laughed while trying to maintain order because everyone wanted to get closer. One young man in the front row shouted, "You changed my life." Gary pointed at him mid-performance and nodded. Moments later, the singer launched into another impossible dance sequence. The crowd screamed so loudly some fans covered their ears while still dancing. Backstage workers stared at monitors in disbelief. "This is historic," one whispered. The concert director nodded slowly. "People will talk about this performance for years." Online, clips from the concert spread across every platform imaginable. Celebrities reposted videos. Music pages called it one of the most energetic live performances of the year. American viewers who had never heard of Gary before searched his music. Instantly, streaming numbers skyrocketed in real time. Meanwhile, inside the arena, the night felt almost unreal. Every beat brought another explosion of cheers. Every lyric united the crowd even more. Gary looked completely unstoppable. Toward the end of the encore performance, he suddenly jumped down from the stage and moved along the barricade. The audience nearly fainted from excitement. Fans reached toward him carefully while singing at the top of their lungs. Gary kept dancing among them. One little girl wearing a sparkling Philippine flag jacket stood frozen in shock as he approached. Gary knelt slightly while singing and held the microphone toward her. At first she couldn't speak. Then she shouted the lyric. The crowd exploded with cheers. Gary laughed proudly and pointed at her. "That's the future right there." The girl's mother cried instantly. Nearby fans hugged each other emotionally. Because everyone understood the deeper meaning behind the moment. A Filipino artist wasn't just surviving on an international stage. He was owning it. As the song built toward its final ending again, Gary climbed back onto the stage. The lights dimmed except for one golden spotlight. The music softened slightly. Gary looked across the crowd one more time. "You know what makes tonight special?" he asked. Thousands listened silently. "It's not just the dancing." The arena remained quiet. "It's seeing all of you together." People nodded while listening carefully. Different backgrounds, different stories, different languages. But tonight, one heartbeat. Huge applause filled the venue. Gary smiled warmly. "That's music." The audience erupted again. Then the drums suddenly thundered back for the final explosive finish. The lights burst across the arena like fireworks. Confetti cannons blasted again. Flames shot upward from the stage. And the entire crowd danced harder than ever before. No one wanted the moment to end. Not the fans. Not the band. Not even the exhausted security guards dancing discreetly near the exits. Gary delivered every final note with unbelievable passion. The dancers spun around him in synchronized perfection. The screens displayed giant close-ups of smiling faces throughout the audience. Joy everywhere. Pure unstoppable joy. Then came the final beat. Boom. Darkness. For 1 second the arena fell silent. Then chaos erupted. The standing ovation became absolutely deafening. People screamed, whistled, cried, jumped. Some fans hugged strangers. Others simply stood there in stunned disbelief. Gary remained motionless in the center of the stage while confetti drifted slowly around him. His chest rose and fell heavily from exhaustion. But his eyes shined with emotion. The audience continued cheering for several straight minutes. Nobody sat down. Nobody left. They just kept chanting his name. Gary, Gary, Gary. Finally, Gary lifted the microphone one last time. "I will never forget this night," he said softly. The crowd responded with another roar. You welcomed Filipino music with open hearts tonight. Fans waved their flags proudly. And because of you, he continued, voice trembling slightly, the world feels a little smaller and a little closer together. The applause thundered again. Gary wiped sweat from his forehead and laughed. "You all danced harder than my dancers tonight." The crowd roared with laughter. One dancer collapsed dramatically onto the stage pretending to faint, making the audience scream even louder. Gary pointed at him. "See, he's finished." The arena filled with laughter and applause. Then Gary became serious again. "Remember this feeling," he told them. The crowd quieted. "Remember the joy. Remember the unity. Remember the music." People held up their phone lights across the venue. "It doesn't matter where we come from," he said. "When we sing together, when we dance together, we understand each other." A wave of emotional cheers swept through the audience. Gary looked upward briefly as if trying to absorb the moment forever. For decades he had performed around the world. He had seen giant crowds before. He had won awards. He had inspired millions. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like history. He bowed deeply. The audience screamed even louder. Then the band slowly began playing a softer instrumental outro while Gary waved toward every section of the venue. Fans refused to stop cheering. Even as the lights slowly brightened, people remained dancing in the aisles. Social media feeds everywhere overflowed with clips from the concert. Headlines started appearing almost instantly. Hataw Na takes over America. Gary Valenciano delivers one of the year's most electrifying performances. Thousands dance nonstop during viral concert moment. Outside the arena, fans poured into the streets still singing the chorus. Cars passing nearby honked rhythmically while people danced on sidewalks. One young American fan looked at his phone while replaying a concert clip. "I came here because my Filipino friend invited me," he admitted. "Now I feel like I witnessed something legendary." Nearby, a Filipino family took photos together beneath the glowing arena sign. The grandmother smiled proudly. "For years we knew how special Gary was," she said softly. Tonight America understood too. Inside the now emptying venue, Gary stood backstage holding a towel around his neck. The noise from the crowd still echoed faintly through the walls. One staff member approached him smiling in disbelief. "You broke the building tonight," he joked. Gary laughed tiredly. Another crew member showed him videos already spreading online. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. Celebrities reacting. Fans demanding another concert immediately. Gary stared quietly at the screen for a moment. Then he looked back toward the stage entrance. Even after all the screaming had faded, he could still feel the energy out there. The dancing. The joy. The unity. The pride. He smiled to himself. Because somewhere in America tonight, thousands of people would go home with sore feet, exhausted voices, and memories they would never forget. And every time they heard those two words again, Hataw Na, they would remember the night Gary Valenciano turned an arena into one giant heartbeat.